Borderlands and BioShock, two video game titans of the 2000s and 2010s. One is a looter shooter with comedy in space, the other is a philosophical steampunk action-adventure. They are both first-person shooters, but other than that, they don't have a whole lot in common. However, while playing Borderlands the pre-sequel with my partner, I noticed some weird similarities between it and BioShock 2. While booting up BioShock 2 again, I noticed a funny thing. This little logo. Did you see it? 2K Australia was an Australian video game developer originally founded as Irrational Games Australia in April of 2000. Irrational Games was purchased by Take-Two Interactive, Rockstar, 2K, and lots of other subsidiaries in 2006. 2K Australia went through a rocky, short lifespan, even going under sister studio's name 2K Marin for a short time, before eventually shutting down in April of 2015. During their short history, 2K Australia did not develop very many games, though you may recognize a couple. They co-developed Borderlands the pre-sequel with Gearbox, supplied support for the development of BioShock 2, and, oh yeah, co-developed the first BioShock as well. Luckily for me and others, the pre-sequel and BioShock 2 have gotten much more love in recent years, but when these games first came out, no one was really talking about them. And what a damn shame, too, because both of these games are amazing in retrospect. I have a lot of admiration and passion for this long-dead studio and these forgotten titles and well-loved IPs. I hope that this video encourages you to play them, and even give some other 2K studio games a try. For now, though, let me gush about one of my favorite games. BioShock 2. BioShock 2 is the sequel to 2007's narrative titan, BioShock. Due to BioShock being as big as it was, and still is, BioShock 2 had some very big shoes to fill. At the time of release, it was very divisive. General audiences wanted to return to Rapture, Take-Two Interactive wanted to sell more Rapture, but Ken Levine, creator of the original BioShock, and some die-hard fans were content with the one story there. Upon release, the game had relatively positive reviews, though none quite as glowing as the ones for the first game. It received a consistent 8 out of 10 or so, with the only major criticism being that it added nothing new to Rapture. It did add a multiplayer mode, which people did enjoy while it was still active, but I never actually had the chance to play it, so I can't personally speak on that. This game is up there in my top favorite games of all time. It gets so many things right, and people were unfortunately either too blinded with rage at BioShock being given another stupid, thoughtless sequel, or they just played it and forgot about it, not really paying attention throughout. If you've never had the pleasure of giving it a playthrough or experiencing Rapture at all, let me run you through a basic plot synopsis to catch you up to speed. It's the 1940s. Rapture is an underwater city created by Andrew Ryan. Ayn Rand admirer Ryan has created a city where no government has control, where the artist, the scientist, and the common man could live without restraint. During Rapture's boom, Atom was discovered by a woman named Brigid Tenenbaum. Atom was a key substance in Rapture's economy that modified the user's genetic material in order to grant them supernatural powers.
Your genetic code is being rewritten. Just hold on and everything will be fine.
But overdoing it was costly and common. Atom addicts became deformed and lost themselves, becoming the iconic and violent splicer enemies we see in-game. Even though throughout the years of 1946 to 1958 Rapture was booming, eventually came its downfall. Thanks to a man named Frank Fontaine and excessive atom use of Rapture's citizens, a riot occurred on New Year's of 1959, causing the entirety of Rapture to crumble in an instant. BioShock 2 takes place after these events have occurred, as well as the events of the first game. While the game certainly makes nods to the first BioShock, I believe that it can be played as its own standalone story. The game opens with you playing as Big Daddy, a genetically enhanced human being in an armored suit. Big Daddy's jobs are simple: protecting the Little Sisters. Little Sisters are Atom-modified young girls whose sole purpose is to reclaim said Atom from corpses. You are a Big Daddy named Subject Delta, running through the halls of Rapture before New Year's with your little sister Eleanor. Eleanor eventually gets captured by some splicers and screams for you to come rescue her. All Little Sisters are orphans, with no familial connections, except for Eleanor, whose mother is a psychologist named Sophia Lamb. Lamb manages to reach Eleanor at the same time as you, and then proceeds to order you to put a gun to your head and pull the trigger. Because Delta is under the effects of the hypnotized plasmid, he does as he's told.
Now, take the pistol. Place it against your head. Fire.
Can you hear me?
You awaken 10 years later, in 1969. During your little nap, the events of the first game take place with Jack, the player character from BioShock 1, murdering Andrew Ryan and Frank Fontaine, as well as saving some Little Sisters from their horrific fate during his romp through Rapture. After you awaken, Eleanor speaks to you telepathically, telling you she's the one who revived you, and needs you to come find her, and quickly. Tenenbaum notices your signal and offers to help you find Eleanor, and in return requests your help to deal with the new Andrew Ryan of Rapture, Sophia Lamb. Lamb is now the leader of a religious cult which she's dubbed the Rapture Family. Her goal is to create altruists in Rapture, and to turn her own daughter into the great utopian, someone who can be totally selfless, and send her to the surface. She holds an iron grip over the city, killing anyone who attempts to flee, and brainwashing the rest. Throughout your journey, you uncover more secrets about your past, how Eleanor came to be a little sister, especially your little sister, how Lamb came to power, and the aftermath of Rapture's civil war. This is just a simple synopsis that allows me to talk about what's necessary, so I really recommend you actually play it for yourself if it sounds interesting at all. This game has incredible depth that most people don't even notice on their first playthrough. In terms of gameplay, BioShock 2 did add a couple of quality of life improvements, such as a better hacking minigame, well-executed new enemy types, and dual-wielding plasmids and weapons for cleaner gunplay. I personally love the gameplay of this game much more than the original BioShock. So much so that I've replayed this game and its DLC probably 5 times now, whereas I've only actually played through the original BioShock once. My main love for this game lies in the writing, and where 2K decided to take the story of BioShock and Rapture. They could have easily made the game that they were supposed to make. A game that would ship for PS3, that would feature a multiplayer mode, and that would be delivered within 2.5 years. It could have very easily been a thoughtless rehashing of the same ideas, the same characters, and the same locations. Some critics still say that's what they did, but I think that they decided to break new ground and work with what they were given to create a meaningful sequel. This game's design is unfortunately lacking just the tiniest amount. I know lots of people really don't like the little sister protection aspect of the game, but unless you're playing on hard, it really isn't necessary. You can kill a big daddy, take that little sister to the nearest vent to save her, and still get some Adam out of it. Is it a lot? No, but it's not nothing. The level design can seem rather tedious, and it does feel a little like a walking simulator at times. However, the original BioShock's levels aren't really that memorable to me. Yes, I love Fort Frolic as much as the next guy, but can you really name any other memorable levels? My point is, 2K Australia kinda worked with what they had and created levels that are passable most of the time, and pretty good occasionally. The stories told within BioShock 2's levels are worth paying attention to much more than pretty much any level from the first game anyway. BioShock 2 shows poverty in Rapture.
Old Papa's Drop's the worst neighborhood in Rapture, but it's a hell of an opportunity to raise up some, affordable housing. When Atlantic Express was constructing their luxury passenger line, this place was hollowed out beneath as flop houses for the railway crew. Nobody was supposed to reside down here long term, but when you're broke in this town, you're not exactly swimming in alternatives. I don't favor spending more than an hour or so down here at a time. There ain't a side of the tracks more wrong than under 'em.
Something most people probably never really thought of while playing the first game was, what about the people who do the jobs no one else wants to do? What about the janitors, the trash collectors, the jazz club singers living off of tips? We hear of the Cohens, the Fontaines, and the Suchongs, but never of the Holloways, the O'Malleys, or the Mills. BioShock 2 answers those unasked questions. You see firsthand what living in poverty in a rich white utopia is like.
I do love Siren Alley. The kind of place you go to scratch an itch you're ashamed of, even in a town with no laws. But that's not why I favor it. The place started out as the Masons' Quarter, all builders and architects, proper as you please. And it just tickles me when someone in a fancy hat falls in the mud. Like a lot of the ladies down here, Siren Alley was born with a more respectable name, but only God remembers what it was.
The level Siren Alley is a wonderful example of this. It's my favorite level, not only visually, but also emotionally. Little Eden Plaza and Plaza Hedone really feel like a city street, like you've taken a chunk of the New Orleans French Quarter and Rapture-fied it. The artwork on the walls, the murals of Jack and Eleanor really are beautiful. The crunched-together buildings on the narrow streets are the genius of Simon and Daniel Wales, architects who built Siren Alley to show off their skills to other artists, masons, and builders of Rapture. However, during Rapture's civil war and the events of the first game, people fell on hard times and were forced to resort to selling themselves and gambling the day away. The ritziest hotel in the area, the Pearl, now known as the Pink Pearl, became a large brothel. Simon Wales saw the collapse of his precious home and became Father Wales, preaching gospel to those who had to resort to prostitution and smuggling Bibles into the city. Daniel Wales decided to go the opposite direction by becoming a pimp for his new employees. Through audio diaries, you learn of Daniel's disgust with his brother's new path in life, and hear how they fully distance themselves from each other, though they used to be so close. You go through the Pink Pearl to get to Daniel, and hopefully by association, Simon. The things in the Pink Pearl are really heartbreaking. In my opinion, it's always been obvious that women have no place in Ryan's utopia, but it seems they don't really have a place in Lamb's either. You end up killing Daniel and find the key to get into Pumping Station 5, Simon's hidden church. The level ends by you finally reaching Simon, battling him in his beloved place of worship. After you defeat him, Lamb overloads the pumps, flooding the entirety of Siren Alley.
Do you think me a tyrant, Delta? Vying for control of a dead man's dream? The city is nothing. Rapture must die so that Eleanor may rise from its body. Allow me to demonstrate.
Lamb's overloading the pumps. The place is coming down. Get to Dionysus Park.
Subject Delta, I want you to commit this moment to memory for me. This howling, brutish slog through the dark. This is who we are.
Get out of there, kid!
And, oh my god, that's when I realized playing this game for the first time that that visual was going to be what I walked away with.
Look, Delta, it is the world for which you strive. You, alone among the dead.
To be completely honest, this visual alone was one of the main reasons I decided to write this whole script. Walking through all the dead bodies, seeing what very little life was left in this space completely gone to waste, all because Lamb is just as selfish as Ryan. In regard to other aspects of the game's design, there are so many things it gets right, and me saying I'm not the biggest fan of the level design doesn't take away anything from all the other things it does so well. For example, if you've played the first game, you know that Jack leaves Rapture, in the good ending, which is canon, with little sisters that he's saved along the way. If I'm remembering correctly, he only leaves with 4 or 5, so you might be asking yourself, what about all the other little sisters? Before Bioshock 2, you kind of just had to assume maybe Jack came back for them or something. But while playing Bioshock 2, we learned very quickly that those who were not lucky enough to be saved by little old Jackie have grown up to become the dreaded Big Sisters. 2K went and answered a question that didn't necessarily need an answer. Yes, since you're now playing as a Big Daddy, you don't really have those big, threatening bosses to scare you anymore, so obviously they needed to add something in terms of gameplay, but they could have just easily thrown in more Big Daddies and told you to fight those. Instead, they added a new enemy with a great design and an understandable reason for being there. They also fix other small issues with the first game. They went and fixed that god-awful hacking minigame with something quicker, easier, and severely less clunky. The research camera requires no ammo, though I really only used it when I played the game on hard. Not having to worry about yet another ammo you need to find makes people more likely to use it. You have the ability to dual-wield both plasmids and a gun, something that not even Infinite allows you to do. Though I suppose it makes more sense for a Big Daddy to dual-wield compared to some doofus. Your starting, and only, I guess, melee weapon is the drill, which is miles better compared to the wrench. Again, it does make more sense for a Big Daddy to have the deadly drill compared to some doofus, and a lot of people don't like that the melee attack now requires ammo, but my point still stands. If it's one thing this game really, really gets right, it's the characters. There's so many I would love to talk about, but this script is already bloated enough as is, so let me talk about one of my absolute favorites. The one that stuck with me the first time I played and the most recent time I played. Dr. Gilbert Alexander. Dr. Gil Alexander is a secondary character throughout your playthrough of BioShock 2. He is a very intelligent scientist who worked for Frank Fontaine before the Rapture Civil War, and later began work for Andrew Ryan. He is one of the people responsible for creating the bonding between the Big Daddies and the Little Sisters, with Eleanor and Delta being his first successful pair. Unfortunately, his research with the bonding, quote, worked too well, unquote, as Alpha Series daddies, what Delta is, who lost their sister, whether via her death, capture, or returning back to human form, went insane and were unsuitable to do other work or to protect other sisters.
Well, that's the end of the Alpha Series. The pair bond simply worked too well. That madwoman Tannenbaum bit the company hand, turning some of the bonded sisters human again. Others were lost to splicers. Either way, the trauma proved too much for the bonded protectors, resulting in unreasoning rage or coma. We can harness their suicidal aggression as foot soldiers, but no more, I'm afraid. Today I saw one kneeling near a gatherer's garden and crying.
After seeing the outcome of the daddies and sisters, especially Eleanor, he felt extreme guilt. Sophia Lamb sniffed out his guilt, manipulated him into working for her because of that, and introduced him to her New Utopian project. She believed that the subject of her operation would be able to suppress their own personality and become a clean slate for the transfusion of every single person's genius and Rapture, with enough Adam, of course. Gil was her guinea pig for the operation, subjecting himself to a horrible amount of Adam, and his body could not handle it. The plan failed, and Lamb simply tossed Gil aside, as without his scientific genius, he was no longer useful. In-game, he now controls Fontaine Futuristics and has dubbed himself Alex the Great. He controls a strange security bot, murdering any of the employees who simply get his name wrong. He plays games with Delta, not allowing you to enter his secret hideout. Eventually, you destroy his signal relays, opening up access to his lair. Throughout this level, you are being led by old recordings of Sane Gil, where he requests that you kill him, as he knows now that he is too far gone. When you enter his lair, the lights are off and Gil's new spliced-up form is hiding in his aquarium tank. However, you need a DNA sample of his in order to unlock a secret tunnel that leads to Persephone, Lamb's hideout and the final level of the game. Gil's old recordings tell you to gather Adam-infused plants, since his new form can't resist the stuff anymore. You gather the plants, leading him out of hiding. There, you get a glimpse at what he has become.
Whatever you may have seen inside the tank, that was indeed me. I fear the fate of Eleanor Lamb will be less physical, but no less grotesque. This tank for deep-sea life is the ideal way to dispose of me.
A red, huge, bloody, undulating mass that once used to be human. The light hurts his eyes and he screams in pain, now even more insane, and on a singular mission to kill Delta. You eventually print a key to the tunnel with the sample you've collected, and are left to decide Gil's fate. Gil's old recordings beg you to send him an electric shock large enough to kill him, while the red mass in front of you begs you to keep him alive. If you decide to kill him, nothing really happens, besides your ending having a slim chance of changing, and you go on to Persephone.
It is done. The sample disposal button on the panel in front of you will administer a massive jolt of electricity to the tank. More than enough to kill me. Whatever I may say to dissuade you, do not listen. The man whose voice you hear now is long gone. As my mind fades, I find my thoughts turn to the suffering that Eleanor will be made to endure, and I am overcome with pity. But I can only offer my feeble prayers. Perhaps after my death, you can do more. Now, please, I ask you to grant me peace. Goodbye, my friend, and thank you. You don't have to kill me, Delta. I'm sorry. Please, I will go outside. I will live outside.
A choice similar to this one happens 2 other times throughout the game, one with Grace Holloway and the other with Stanley Poole. I like the choices offered for those characters as well, but I feel the strongest for Gil, as his guilt over what he's done to Eleanor is truly visible. Richard Cobbett for Eurogamer wrote that, "Where BioShock was ultimately the story of a city, BioShock 2 is the story of its people." And I think that's abundantly clear when you experience Fontaine Futuristics. You listen to other audio logs of Gil's throughout the game, not really knowing who he is. Then you finally encounter him and see the monster he's become, and, in my opinion, it's really hard not to feel for him. There are other amazing characters in this game, of course, such as Sophia and Eleanor Lamb, Charles Milton Porter from the Minerva's Den DLC, Augustus Sinclair, and even more secondary characters like Grace Holloway and Mark Meltzer. These characters, unlike the first game, feel like real people. They're not caricatures of rich, power-hungry men using other people as playthings. Minerva's Den is one of several DLCs for BioShock 2, but it's really the only one worth your time. Released in August of 2010 as the final piece of DLC for the game, it received very minimal marketing, and at first was only released for Xbox 360 and PS3. 2K eventually made a PC port, and from then on it's been kind of a required reading, if you will. I will not spoil any of the plot here, as I am a huge fan of this DLC, and I think the ending needs to be experienced, not just told to you. However, here's a basic plot synopsis to get you interested. Minerva's Den takes place around the same time as the base game, however, you are playing as a different Big Daddy, Subject Sigma. You are heading to Minerva's Den, Rapture's supercomputing sector. There, you are being led by a Charles Milton Porter to reach his precious computer, the Thinker. He wants to get the blueprints for the Thinker so that he can recreate it on the surface. His work partner, Reed Wall, is your main antagonist, as he believes the Thinker belongs to him and him alone. This DLC also ties up Tenenbaum's story, as she was, again, kind of forgotten about in the base game. In terms of writing, like I said, I don't want to give too much away, but if my word isn't enough, almost everyone who plays it says it is incredible. Even negative reviews of the base game will say the DLC alone is worth your time. So many people think it is the best of Rapture, and I wholeheartedly agree. The characters are even better than the ones in the base game, even if there really are only like 4 total. Minerva's Den consists of about 3 different maps, with the largest one being the first one. It's set up in a way that's a little more open to exploration, especially compared to the base game. There's a few different subsections of Minerva's Den, one being McClendon Robotics, where you can see some of Rapture's electronics in production. If you're familiar with the Fallout games, a lot of Minerva's Den really reminds me of them. Visually, it has an almost retro-futuristic feel to it, rather than the Art Deco feel of the base game and the original BioShock. The gameplay is relatively the same, but they did create one new plasmid, a new weapon, and a couple new enemies. The plasmid, Gravity Well, fucking slaps. I love this goofy plasmid so much. You get it as a story progression requirement to unlock magnetically locked doors, but it's also just fun to use in combat. Watching it suck up all the splicers and their bots and then just shooting them point blank with the shotgun is so silly and fun. The new weapon, the Ion Laser, is just a classic laser gun. It's definitely fun to use, especially when you start getting other ammo for it. The thermal cell deals fire damage, while the burst cell can be charged up to deal large amounts of piercing damage. In regards to the new enemies, they're all just new versions of previous enemies. There's a new Houdini Splicer, a new Brute Splicer, a new Big Daddy, and upgraded security bots. They all function mostly the same as their counterparts in the base game, just with new elements added to their attacks. The wintry Houdini Splicers are obviously frosty compared to the typical Houdini Splicers. The fiery Brute Splicers can throw Incinerate your way in addition to packing a punch. The bots can shoot laser beams or rockets or electric shocks instead of just bullets, and the Lancer Big Daddy is my favorite.
The Lancer is the most technically advanced Big Daddy that Rapture ever produced.
They look more knightly than their counterparts, with large metal helmets coming down to their chests. They also have an additional attack, the Ion Flash. They charge up their laser, temporarily blinding anyone who is looking in their direction. You can be warned of this attack by a high-pitched squeal that the Lancers make before doing it. I love their design and really appreciate that the strongest Big Daddies are located in Rapture's highest technology center. It makes sense. This DLC was created by a small team of 10 led by Steve Gaynor, who came up with the idea of Minerva's Den during his interview at 2K. Unfortunately, teams of the games he worked on later came out and said that he was not the greatest to work under. However, I can still recognize that this DLC is some of the best of BioShock, and I do agree with Gaynor's sentiment of promoting collaboration and throwing away the idea of segregated roles. Quote, "It has to be organic as possible, and when someone has something that's not necessarily their primary responsibility, but they have a passion for it and ideas for it, I think you have to take advantage of that." Unquote. The Minerva's Den team used limited assets and funds to create something beautiful, even if it was under a bad manager and an even worse corporation. There's an old interview with Gaynor done shortly after the release of the DLC that I think is a wonderful insight to the humans behind Minerva's Den. He talks about fun Easter eggs and hidden secrets that nod to the team that created it and their inspirations. Everybody who worked on the game has an atom slug named after them. How cool is that? I've linked the interview in the description in case you wanted to give it a read. BioShock 2 has so much personality, so much heart, and all of this is evident if you play it. Please, play it. If the only thing you take away from this video is my love of BioShock 2, I'm totally fine with that. Is it perfect? No. Did these developers deliver tenfold on what they were supposed to? Abso-fucking-lutely. Borderlands, the pre-sequel, takes place chronologically in between Borderlands 1 and 2, but was released after both of these games, hence the confusing title. A lot of criticism about this game comes from people who say it wasn't really a necessary inclusion, and that it's just a glorified $40 Borderlands 2 DLC. I've played through 2 a couple times, though never on my own. I've always played with my partner in co-op, and I think it's fun, but there are definitely some parts that didn't age well. I can see where the criticism comes from, as this game doesn't add that much in terms of gameplay and story, but it does greatly improve upon the things that are already there. I have continued to reach for pre-sequel more and more compared to its counterparts because it's just plain funny. While I do not feel as strongly for pre-sequel as I do BioShock 2, I can easily notice the similarities between the two games. I can also appreciate them for doing things that not even the original creators of their respective series could do with the third installments. The Borderlands series is known for its space cowboy setting, looting and shooting gameplay, and period-specific humor. You play as vault hunters in all the games. They're bounty hunters in search of vaults, which are an ancient tech created by the alien species, the Iridians, and have been said to hold endless treasures and riches. The vaults are protected by a specific alien creature, most of which are absolutely terrifying and hard to beat. Borderlands the pre-sequel is told entirely in retrospect by Athena, one of the player characters of the game, to characters from the previous Borderlands games, Lilith, Brick, and Mordecai. Athena begins her retelling of the story to Lilith, who has her restrained. Athena was originally working with other Vault Hunters, Nisha, Wilhelm, Claptrap, Timothy, and Aurelia, and was called the Helios Space Station, an extension of the Hyperion Corporation, by a man named Jack. Jack is the antagonist in Borderlands 2, and the whole point of the pre-sequel is to show his descent into madness and rise to power. However, in the beginning of this game, he's just some mid-level programmer working underneath a shitty boss for a pretty shitty corporation. Due to the hand he's been dealt, he's intent on finding one of the vaults to plunder for himself, and has enlisted the help of the Vault Hunters in order to achieve that. Colonel Tungstina Zarpedon takes over Helios Space Station while the Vault Hunters are meeting Jack, and fires the mega bad and powerful Hyperion laser, the Eye of Helios, down onto Elpis, the moon of the planet Pandora, where Borderlands 1 and 2 take place.
Wow, I am like totally freaking out about the giant beam thing.
Jack wants you to stop her from doing that, obviously, so you take jobs from him in order to find out why she's doing what she's doing, find out who's helping her, gather resources and technological advances, and all while still trying to find the vault. Throughout the game, Athena and the other Vault Hunters take on the Militant Corporation doll, moon animals, Iridians, and other weird characters. You meet new characters specific to this game, experience old characters in a new light, and even help take part in the creation of iconic enemies that appear in Borderlands 2. The events of the story slowly lead Jack into his murderous descent, and help tie up some plot holes between the events of Borderlands 1 and 2. Again, this is just a simple synopsis, and I really recommend playing through the game for yourself. Not only is it funny, it's a fun game to couch co-op with a friend or partner. It adds interesting gameplay elements, along with filling in the gaps of a story that, again, didn't really need the gaps filled in the first place, but it is still fun learning the hows and whys of Jack. Unlike BioShock 2, this game is much more story-focused and much less singular character-focused. I don't think that's necessarily a flaw, as not every story needs to be emotional and character-driven. Speaking of it being story-oriented, let's talk about that, shall we?
More like Meme-Lands 2. More like Meme-Lands the pre-meme-cool. More like border memes. More like meme.
Pre-sequel's story is leagues better than Borderlands 2. I know a lot of people really love the second game, so it might be heinous of me to say this, but the story is kind of boring. Borderlands 2 tends to just throw obstacles at you, while pre-sequel has a lot of mini arcs with their own contained stories. While the story of Pre-Sequel is no masterpiece, its strengths are still very strong, and it adds some much-needed world building to the franchise. Seeing Jack in the beginning, hearing how endearing he seems to be is fun.
Your story is making Handsome Jack kind of sympathetic. I hate it.
I like that there's no overarching villain necessarily in this game, whereas Jack is watching your every move, commenting on every action you take in Borderlands 2. Zarpedon is technically the main antagonist, but she kind of dies in the midpoint of the story, and for the rest of the game, you just have a goal. Get the vault. Which is what Athena and all the other Vault Hunters' job titles are. I mean, it literally says Vault right there. In terms of the side quests in this game, I love them and I am disappointed in them. I would say about 85% of them are one singular quest. No quest line, just find this guy, talk to them, do what they want you to do, talk to them again, get a reward, and never see them again. However, almost all of these quests fucking slap, which is why I'm so disappointed we don't spend more time with some of these characters. Sturwin is so sweet and funny, and I love that they put a Steve Irwin character in the game. The basketball shit is hilarious.
Now it's time to slam and jam.
Dunks is lining up. Let's see if he can get the height he needs to perform what scientists have dubbed the ultimate slam dunk.
Let's do this. Basketball!
Dunks Watson has jumped so high he broke Elvis's gravitational pull. A truly monumentous day for b-ball, any way you put it. Fantastic. You don't need a ball, just jump up into the air and slam down on that hoop to complete the most slam-jamminest b-ball dunk in history. If you could do so while engulfed in flames, that would be even more slam-jamminest. He or she is on fire!
Your environment.
Nisha has slammed and jammed the hoop. The repercussions of this moment will be felt for eons to come. Get back here for your post-game interview.
Attention, atmosphere detected.
Nisha, that was simply the most b-ball-tastic thing I've ever seen. What is your secret?
Gotta thank my coach. He told me I could do anything if I believed in myself. And it was a long road to get here, but we did it. We did it, coach!
Wise words from the single most ballness athlete to ever hit the court. Speak to me again when you're ready. Back to you, voice in my head.
And one of the only side quest lines with the colonizer guy and his little spaceship honestly didn't even get old for me. Unfortunately, due to the fast pace of the side quests, the rest of the game tends to feel like it's flying by you as well. The main story is full enough, though we don't tend to spend as much time in an area or with certain characters as we need. We also don't spend much time with specific areas' bosses like Red Belly, Flame Knuckle, and RK5. I mean, the game itself even makes a joke that Red Belly came out of nowhere and they're just some random weirdos.
Who the hell were those weirdos? Oh, whatever. Freaking over it. Just turn off the signal.
And granted, I hate the RK5 fight, but like, isn't that the point? Make me spend more time with him before the battle so that I can really hate him. Even though some of the bosses aren't the best, the rest of the characters in this game are really enjoyable. Felicity is one of my favorite Borderlands characters. A lot of player characters are hilarious and despicable, if a little overpowering and annoying at the beginning.
Haven't felt this good since Mom died.
Yes! And all of the different Claptrap types in both the base game and Claptastic Voyage DLC are great. I do wish we spent even more time with NPCs like Janie, Zarpedon, and Nina, but the ones that we do spend time with are very much time well spent. I love hearing the voice lines from the player characters, with each one responding to the same situation slightly differently.
Moxie? Ma'am? Hello?
Hey, whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing in here?
Oh, jeez. Even cuter without makeup. That's just... this is the worst.
Damn it, I really don't like people seeing me out of character. The hell do you want?
The Marif locked up in city. Could she help me get out? Please?
I know a way out, but I won't show it to you unless you promise not to tell anyone what you saw here.
Yeah, no, totally, of course, I promise. Anything, absolutely anything for you. Please, just, God, marry me. I mean, I didn't say that. What's up with you? How are you?
Or the environment responding to you differently depending on who you're playing as.
Hey, body double. If this all goes according to plan, your pay is gonna skyrocket, because I'm gonna be somebody people really want to kill. That's what worries me.
Or even the little interactions between player characters.
What Jack did to the scientists, man, that did not feel right.
It was amazing. The looks on their faces, the noise they made, so hot.
When I played as Nisha and my partner as Timothy, almost every time I used Nisha's action skill, Timmy would say, "She's the sheriff." And man, I just love that.
She's the sheriff!
Yet another thing I have to praise about this game is the humor. Unfortunately, Borderlands games are always a product of their times.
Vault hunters can suck it. Booyah thug life, #YOLO.
I've never played the first game, but based on what I know about it, it takes itself much more seriously, so it's a bit of an outlier with this comment. I'm mainly referring to the 3 games that I know best: Borderlands 2, 3, and Pre-Sequel. In my honest opinion, Pre-Sequel dates itself the least. The jokes aren't so 2012 or 2016 coded. Pre-Sequel's jokes are honestly just funny. Yeah, a very tiny few of them don't land / are outdated, and some of the side quests get to the punchline a little too quickly and would be funnier if they were drawn out, but I'd say at least 75% of them got a good chuckle out of me.
Welcome to the maintenance area. It's not done yet.
And another 10 or 15% got an actual laugh out of me.
Oh, cool. Jack sent help. Well, I'd love to get out of here, but the soldiers released stalkers into my office, and they took my stuff. I lost a picture of my kid. Could you get it for me? I know it sounds dumb, but if I don't get that picture of my son back, he'll freak. He likes to know I'm thinking of him. Kinda dorky, but sweet.
Oh, Dr. Langlois, yeah, he helped design the loaders back when they just carried around boxes and stuff. Smart enough dude. His kid smells like soup, though.
Most of the jokes are about something Australian, which I think it's great that 2K Australia used this game to be their own punching bag.
Kill those talks so we can talk!
Regardless of the small concerns I have with the pacing of the story or underutilization of the characters, I can recognize why these problems are there and can pretty easily look past them. This game was released in October of 2014, just 6 months before the closure of 2K Australia. Look past the small flaws, and the whole entire cast of characters are great, and the story improvements are really visible if you stop and listen.
Hey! Claire? You're really good at this game!
In terms of new gameplay elements that they added, Pre-Sequel adds ice and laser weapons to the gunplay and Oz kits for breathing and slamming on the moon. I think ice is so much fun in this game, and I have no idea why it wasn't added in 2. According to Randy Pitchford, co-founder of Gearbox, developer of the first 2 games, and chief weirdo, he was a huge voice wishing for an ice gun during the development of those games. However, some people at Gearbox were concerned with the gameplay balancing and the logic of the weapon in the game. 2K Australia took the setting of the moon and used the concept of cryogenics and ran with it. They made the gun that even Gearbox was too scared to make. The laser guns are also a fun gameplay improvement, and personally some of my favorite guns.
Who uses lasers anymore? Seriously.
They work really well with Nisha's skills, as I can just wail into someone with this laser beam and not even have to aim. Plus, to be honest, they look pretty cool. Oz kits are a lot of fun, and a hell of a lot more interesting than relics, as you can just boost and slam all over a map. With how big the level maps are, the Oz kits help, somewhat, to make the maps more traversable. They are slightly underutilized, I think, as they can only be used for boosts and slams, and in addition for faster revives. I like what they have added, but do wish we had more, as I don't feel a dire need to upgrade my Oz kit very often, if really at all. I'm not going out of my way to buy new ones or farm for a really crazy legendary one. In regards to other gameplay, this game just gets character builds better. At level 50, it's possible for you to have 2 capstone abilities rather than just one in Borderlands 2. This is because 2K Australia actually just made it take less skill points to reach the capstone overall, all while still managing to keep the same ballpark amount of skills for each character. In fact, the characters in Pre-Sequel typically have more total skills, with them consistently having anywhere from 33 to 38, while Zero and Maya in Borderlands 2 have the lowest amount at only 30. In Borderlands 2, there are a decent amount of filler skills that you kind of just have to get, even if you don't really want them, because you're after that capstone, baby. In Pre-Sequel, however, pretty much all of the skills are good, even if they're passive buffs. And honestly, the characters just feel flat out stronger in Pre-Sequel compared to Borderlands 2. The skills just have better abilities, buffs, or whatever else. The skills also tend to mesh together better. Like, for example, let's take a look at Zero and Athena's melee trees. Zero's wants to simultaneously have you shooting and meleeing, but when it comes down to how the passive skills interact with some of the more important skills, or even specific equipment you might have, they are unhelpful opposites at best, and harmful at worst. Zero's Grim skill does not synergize with a melee shield, as you need to not regenerate the shield to use the effects of your equipment, and the Execute skill doesn't even work with the Wind skill. In contrast, Athena's has one goal: make your enemies bleed. To do that, you melee them, inflicting damage over time. Then, you can add skills like Tear and Fury of the Arena to help with enemies that might not be in your melee range by shooting them. All of this allows you to create the character you actually want, rather than just playing player insert characters with a couple customization options. My only major complaint with this game is the size of the maps. Unfortunately, they are just way too large and take too long to traverse. I know they made them big because of OzKits, but even while boosting and slamming, I feel like I'm going the speed of a goddamn turtle. They definitely tried to make them more vertical as well, as you're using jump pads and boosts to reach really high places, but with the Borderlands engine's minimap, it's just difficult to tell where you actually need to go sometimes. I'm willing to forgive a lot of it though, as the maps do look nice, especially Veins of Helios, one of my personal favorites. Cars are almost non-existent in this game, and while the Stingray is fun, it's also really annoying that if you're playing multiplayer you can't just share one like with every other vehicle. I will say, however, that no matter how annoyed I get with Deadlift, RK5, or getting lost, that boosting is just smooth, fun movement, and the jokes, characters, and visuals of this game make it my favorite Borderlands game. If you've never played a Borderlands game before, I honestly recommend this one first, and then Borderlands 2. It's chronological and just more fun. These games are great to play with a friend or partner, and can honestly be played by people who don't even necessarily like shooters or have insane gamer skills.
Oh, Athena! You almost forgot to tell Lilith and everyone the best part of the adventure!
I assure you my report was sufficiently thorough.
Nuh-uh! What about the really cool stuff that happened right at the end?
The end?
When Handsome Jack had you all go inside me!
Oh, that. Ugh. Well, Athena, I'm all ears.
It's cracking! We're happy! It's cracking! Yeah!
If it's one thing 2K Australia really got right, it's the damn DLCs. These things are spectacular. Borderlands, the pre-sequel, only really got one full campaign DLC, as Luxie's space adventure was planned and in the works, but was axed due to company closure. Like all Borderlands games, it did get some new player characters and cosmetic packs, and it also received an arena challenge type DLC, the Holodome. I'm not the biggest fan of the Holodome, but it doesn't really have any major story beats or character development, so in my opinion it's not super necessary to play. Claptastic Voyage, on the other hand, oh my god, you have to play this. You have to do pretty much all of the side quests, see all the awesome mind-bending and funny areas, enjoy all the characters, both old and new, and take advantage of those awesome glitch weapons. Claptastic Voyage has you going inside a Claptrap unit's head and digging around in there. There's not a huge amount of story to be had, so I don't really need to tell you much more than that. Plus, like I did with Minerva's Den, I don't want to give too much away. Again, the writing of this DLC is incredible. They actually flesh out Claptrap as a character and give him real depth. You see his hopes, his fears, why he likes dubstep so much, why he fucks everything up, how many people throughout his life have treated him like trash even though he's a robot and robots have feelings, damn it! I played Borderlands 2 a couple times before ever actually giving pre-sequel a try, and I didn't necessarily hate Claptrap, but I didn't like him very much.
I just like Claptrap and hope he dies.
However, this DLC made me enjoy him as a character. My weakness is giving the comic relief characters some sort of tragic backstory, and man, did they do that.
Shut the hell up!
Why are you always so mean to me? Everyone is always so mean! All I've ever done is try to help. I know I mess up, and at 10 to the power of 100, I'm sorry about it. But if you can't see that, and can't take my good intentions for what they are, then maybe you don't deserve anything good to ever happen to you. In fact, I'm out of here.
Not only did they make Claptrap's story a tearjerker, they also wrote some of the best jokes I've ever heard in any Borderlands game, or hell, any game in general. Is Claptrap still a punching bag? Yeah, kinda, but even his jokes are funny.
Hey, just so you know, so you're like prepared, my music collection can be pretty intimidating. There's a lot of tracks in there. I'm talking classical, jazz, rock, pop, folk, rap, various fusions, trip hop, musicals, a lot of musicals. I'm talking full orchestra, original cast recordings, rare remixes, unreleased B-sides. You know, a lot of stuff you probably never heard of. So, fair warning, if your mind gets blown, it's not on me, you know?
They're not some stupid joke that they have to take 3 sentences to explain, or some poop joke that is totally unnecessary, or a joke that feels like it was ripped straight from 2012. They're all funny. Little quips here and there that you might not even notice the first time, natural conversations that show characters' personalities well. It's just all so good. Play this if you want to laugh, even if you have no fucking idea who Claptrap is. There are actually a decent amount of locations in this DLC, with some amazing names, I might add. Motherless Board is hilarious, and I don't care if you think otherwise. Some of the locations are absolutely amazing to look at. Subconscious and Sub-Subconscious are extremely memorable and fun to traverse. They're also big, but that isn't as big of a problem as it is in the base game. They still might take some time to move through, especially if your character doesn't have good movement speed, but I'm actually totally okay with taking my time through these maps. In regards to some other new additions, this DLC adds a new rarity to weapons, the glitch weapons, and man, they're so cool. They look cool and also have some really neat randomly generated additional buffs. They're mostly identical in terms of stats to purple weapons, except they have bigger magazines and their error codes. Error codes include 4 options: overload, loop, multi-shot, and amplify. Each gun will have a randomly generated number for each glitch, indicating how often they'll occur. Overload reduces fire rate and consumes 3 ammo per shot, but they pack a much larger punch. Loop gives a high chance to not consume ammo and will refill half the gun's mag capacity with each kill. It can also change the way your gun fires depending on which gun type you're using. Multi-shot retains the gun's fire rate but adds an additional 5 projectiles to each shot while consuming an additional 2 ammo per shot. Amplify protects you from projectiles at the cost of your shield. It consumes less than an actual Amplify shield, and once you kill an enemy with it active, it will fully recharge your shield. As good as Claptastic Voyage is, and as much as I love it, it saddens me to know that we could have gotten more of it. Claptastic Voyage was released in late March of 2015, less than 1 month before 2K Australia shut its doors for good. They were in the middle of creating Luxie's space adventure, and it seems like they were rather far along in production. Looking at concept art, models, and animations makes me extremely fucking sad. I want to see this. The people who worked so hard on it want it to be shown to the world. Unfortunately, though, we'll most likely never see it. And whose fault is that? Well, it's a little corporation we know by the name of 2K. While I'll be the first to admit that 2K's ownership of these intellectual properties allowed these games to be created, I would also like to recognize that 2K is a multi-million-dollar company owned by a multi-billion-dollar parent company who decided to close this short-lived studio at the drop of a hat. Many people were laid off, work was rushed, and yet even after all that, they still managed to put out amazing games. I really wish I could refer to them without the 2K label, though Australia isn't a great game development company name, huh? Unfortunately, due to 2K being, 2K, I have a list of people here who are credited on the 2 games this whole video is about, but in the credits of both games, they are not credited at all for their specific achievements and additions to these projects. That makes me extremely upset that these people cannot be recognized for their work, whether it be a tiny modeled background item or an entire level's design. But, oh look at this! All those big suits over at 2K Publishing get all their titles, even though they contributed next to nothing to the creation of these games. Luckily for us, I found recent work from one person who worked on BioShock 2. Jonathan Shea, co-founder of Irrational Games, along with Ken Levine, one of the big brains behind the first BioShock, and studio head of 2K Australia throughout the creation of BioShock 2, went on to create Blue Manchu, creators of Card Hunter and Void Bastards. While I haven't played either of these games, I am much more interested in Void Bastards now that I know what it was inspired by and who is behind it. I'm not going to go into major detail with everyone I've listed, but if any of them happen to watch this weird, stupid, unorganized video, I do want to tell them thank you for working on these games. I also want to showcase a couple things that these people made that deserve showing off. These 2 guys did a lot of the art-related things for these games, and I think it's just so impressive the different styles they're able to achieve with their skills. We also have the absolute best addition to any game ever, the song Mainframe, from the Claptastic Voyage DLC, written by the lead audio designer Justin Mullins.
So I can get back in the match. But something's caught my eye. A mainframe reaching to the sky. You've got a good looking mainframe. I like the size of your mainframe. I have a query for your mainframe. Can I make an input up a request? You've got a good looking mainframe. I like the size of your mainframe. I have a query for your mainframe. Can I make an input up a request?
So, while it seems this video is just me gushing about these games, the idea for this video originally started when I was playing through Pre-Sequel with my partner for the first time. I noticed that even though I hadn't played BioShock 2 in a very long time, and I had no idea that these games were developed by the same company, they had a lot of weird things in common. Here's what I noticed. Each game uses the engine and a lot of the assets of the game prior. A lot of people, especially those in the Borderlands community, view this as a huge downfall of these games because they look and feel too similar to the games prior. However, I think that with reusing assets, 2K Australia allowed themselves more time to focus on the important stuff like story writing, character writing, new gameplay elements, and polishing the bare bones that were already there. They both add interesting new mechanics. BioShock with Big Sisters, Borderlands with more spacey stuff, Oz kits, and ice guns. These things improve the gameplay as well as the world building of both games. A lot of people don't like these additions, and some people like not knowing more about the worlds, but I think it would have been a lot worse if we had gotten 100% of the previous things in these games, with no new additions, right? They both answer questions that didn't necessarily need answers, but they are answered well. Kind of an extra off my last point, the Big Sisters aren't necessary, yet greatly enhance the game, while knowing how Jack came to be Handsome Jack isn't something we needed to know, but it's still interesting to see. Some playable characters are originally from the prior game. It's fun to play someone or something that was an enemy or just an NPC from the games where you've seen them previously. Stepping into a Big Daddy suit throughout the entirety of the game, rather than just one small segment, or seeing Wilhelm before all of his insane cybernetics is fun and cool and interesting. They both have noticeably improved writing in one way or another from the previous game. BioShock with its character writing, and Pre-Sequel with its story writing, however both games are also pretty damn good at the opposite thing too. Amazing DLC, and I don't think I need to get into that again. And they are both forgotten about compared to the surrounding titles. This one makes me sad. The fans of the respective franchises may recognize these games, but casual gamers may only know BioShock Infinite or Borderlands 2. And in the worst case, fans of their respective series might actually hate these games. I saw a lot of pre-sequel hate while researching this video, and I really do think a lot of them are just bandwagoning and not fully giving the game a chance. This video has really been all over the place, but I just want to share my love of these games and this long dead studio. If you want more Borderlands or BioShock but haven't given either of these games a chance because of their negative reviews, I believe that they are the best games of their respective franchises. If you've never played any Borderlands or BioShock games and these ones have sounded interesting at all, I urge you to go play them for yourself. And if any of the reasons I have listed throughout this video somehow aren't enough, please just play them for my sake because I've been working on this video since August of 2023. Pre-Sequel consistently goes on sale on Steam. At time of writing, it's $9.99. And BioShock 2 and Minerva's Den are included in the BioShock collection, which also very frequently goes on sale. Hell, I'm sure you could maybe even find old discs of these at thrift stores if you look hard enough. If anyone who worked on these games has somehow found this video, thank you for working on these pieces of art, and I recognize your hard work 1,000,000 times over. 2K, you can go fuck yourself, but 2K Australia, thank you for the video game experiences of a lifetime.
You are aware of your plight. Who, I wonder, would be so cruel to force a mirror on a man with no face?